My fiance, 27 female, and I, 29 male, grew up very differently. I was an immigrant who moved here when I was 6, and we were struggling a lot. My parents worked extremely hard to provide for my siblings and me, always prioritizing our education over everything. My dad always told me it was his dream to live in a house he owned, since we'd always rented, but he couldn't save up enough since we were renting in expensive areas with good schools. Unfortunately, both of my parents passed away before realizing that dream. My dad passed away when I was 17, and my mom died almost 3 years ago. My fiance grew up fairly wealthy, like private schools, designer clothes, and 3 to 4 international vacations per year, flying first or business class the whole way. I was able to attend college thanks to student loans, scholarships, and part-time jobs, which delayed my graduation a bit. At the same time, her parents could fairly easily cover all expenses themselves. However, I'm the last person to say that my fiance hasn't earned everything she's gotten. She's extremely intelligent, and besides funding her education, her parents are not responsible for her accomplishments. My fiance and I met 6 years ago when we started working at the same company, in the same position, at the same time, after graduating from college. We hit it off almost instantly, and it didn't take long for us to start dating. Both of us still work at the same company. However, I've progressed through the career ladder a bit more quickly than she has, and now make just over twice what she does. I'll be the first to admit that this is completely undeserved, and I've benefited from a lot of luck and some favoritism since we work in a male-dominated field. Still, that has allowed me to attack my student loans aggressively, and once they were paid off, I put that into saving up for a down payment on a house to fulfill my parents' dreams. I proposed about 6 months ago, and things have been great so far. However, this past weekend, we were at her family's house when her parents told us that for a wedding present, they were going to give us a house. My fiance was overjoyed, and although I was also happy, I wanted to know the details. Her parents quickly told us that the house would be in her name only, and that they expected us to sign a prenup to protect any and only pre-marriage assets, just in case. I was insulted that they thought I was after their money, since I make more than she does anyway, and I told them that they couldn't call it a wedding present if they only gave it to one person. I then told my fiance I refuse to live in a house that I don't own, and she knows exactly why. After that, all 3 of them got very upset with me. The hilarious part of the prenup conversation was that they basically said they expected the prenup to cover only premarital and inherited assets. They said they would absolutely refuse to accept any clauses fair to me. Besides that though, it's also just a personal thing. I want to live in a house that I own, not them. So, am I the idiot? Edit. I also should mention that currently, my fiance and I share our finances. She makes about $120K, and I make about $250K. We split things according to income, so I pay around 2/3, and she pays around 1/3. Based on our conversations, my fiance and I both expected this arrangement to continue after marriage. Okay, I actually don't think you're after their money. Nothing you wrote indicates that's what they think. I would assume they're giving their daughter a valuable asset. It's clearly not a wedding gift, but a gift for their daughter. What would you do if your fiance's parents went out and bought her a house today? It's then a premarital property in her name. In your marriage, you get to live rent-free and mortgage-free, spend money taking international vacations, and wear designer clothes if you like. That's the gift. If you divorce, you get equity, and she keeps the house. If she dies, you get the house. Would you refuse to live in this house and call off the wedding? I get why it's offensive, but you're not their child, and they're still giving you something big as long as you don't divorce their daughter. I actually don't think they're being awful. You're missing one key point though. All the money he saves after the marriage from not paying a mortgage, she's entitled to half, if they divorced based on the prenup they want. They're saying marital assets, money saved, retirement, etc., would not be protected. He still loses here and would only walk away with his pre-marriage savings and only half of any post-nuptial savings. He makes more than her, so she would make out like a bandit. I mean, if his in-laws are going to act like rich people and nup up, then they have to let OP get an attorney and do the same. Agree. That is not a wedding gift. That's a bridal gift for the bride only. They aren't giving the house to you as a couple. They're giving her a house and ensuring you get no equity in it. OP, of course they're upset with you. You saw through the scheme and called them out on it. Your fiance's taking her parents' side in this. Disturbs me. Update. Am I the idiot for telling my future in-laws I don't want to live in a house I don't own? Well, I'll start with my fiance's older sister, 29, calling me out of the blue a few hours ago to tell me that her parents didn't ask her husband to sign a prenup before they got married. Both of my fiance's sisters and my fiance's brother-in-law were at this dinner where her parents talked about the house, so they both heard the whole conversation, and my fiance's sister thought I deserved to know. My fiance's brother-in-law comes from a well-off family as well, but I don't know how well-off, or whether they're on the same level as my fiance's family, or just upper middle class. Their wedding was pretty extravagant. My fiance's family is white and American, as is the brother-in-law. I'm Pakistani. I don't believe her parents are racist, but it seemed like this information was important. Anyway, about 3 hours ago, my fiance finally came home. She had stayed at her parents' house because we'd gotten into quite an argument. I was expecting her to continue the argument, but she came and apologized immediately. Apparently, her younger sister, 22, chewed her out after I left her parents' house. She laid into my fiance on how she was being inconsiderate because everyone knew how important owning my own home was to me. She also said that her parents weren't treating me right or equally. That made my fiance see my side, as she said, but she was too embarrassed, which is why she didn't come home last night. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of my fiance's little sister right now. She's always been a no-nonsense firecracker type of girl, while my fiance is a bit of a people pleaser and a daddy's girl, and she's kind of always vying for her father's approval. My fiance's even said she knows she needs to work through that before we get married. I'm gonna buy her sister a cupcake. I pressed a bit, and my fiance told me that her parents did make comments when we first started dating about being concerned about the future, specifically about our children looking different and being treated poorly by our family. They asked her many times if she was sure about me. This was also the case when they said they didn't want to do any traditional Pakistani events for the wedding. That was fine for me anyway, so I didn't care, but now it makes me think a bit. I explained to her how I felt like I was going into this as an unequal partner, and she absolutely agreed that it wasn't fair. She even said she'd tell her parents that she would refuse to sign the prenup. I told her to slow down because she was going between extremes. I told her that we still needed to get the prenup because her family was already having difficulty accepting me, which would make it worse. However, I told her that under no circumstances was I signing anything her parents had a part in drafting, and that we would each retain our own lawyers outside of her parents' influence and get something that's fair and equitable. She agreed. We then talked about the house. My initial proposal was to pay half, but she said that what I said about it being a wedding present, so it should be for both of us, was true. So we agreed that we would each get half ownership of the house, with her parents paying for 75% of it, and me using the money I've saved, plus a small mortgage for the other 25%. Both of our names would be on the title. We then called her parents together and told them our plan. They grumbled about it a bit initially, especially because her dad was still upset that I had been so ungrateful, but eventually we were able to talk it through, and they agreed to the plan. I doubt that this is the last I hear about this, but at least for now, It seems like the situation is mostly resolved. Thanks for the update, but I'm sorry, dude. You're making a huge mistake in marrying into this family. They gave you a prenup that would absolutely screw you over when they didn't treat their other sister-in-law like this. They've been highly and overtly racist, which will escalate and get much worse after your marriage. Your fiance's made it clear she has no intention of defending you. Her sisters are the reason she's apologizing, not her love for you. Her sisters care more about you than she does. Are you ready to spend forever having your wife care more about her toxic father's approval than you? Are you ready to raise mixed Pakistani children in her family, subjecting them to a lot of internalized hate and self-loathing? Please think this through. Agree. I'd like to say something about the update too. My parents were like hers, and that they weren't overly toxic, but they did make comments about what the kids would look like and how the rest of the family would accept them. Our son was not treated like the other grandchildren by his grandmother and aunt. Oh, and her dad was still upset that I had been so ungrateful? And what exactly does he think you should have been grateful for? The house that he didn't want in your name? The house you're paying off yourself? Darling, wake up. The situation is not resolved yet. Last month, my old neighbors moved out, and some new ones moved in. A couple in their late 20s with 4 small children. The wife is a stay-at-home mom, and the husband is a trucker. I went to introduce myself and bring them a pie right after they moved in. I didn't like their vibe, but I'm a friendly person, so I invited the wife to things. Our neighborhood is small, with a collection of 10 houses. Everyone knows everyone, and is generally pretty friendly. No one else has young kids, though. It's mostly couples with no kids, or older couples whose kids have moved out. I hang out with my 2 female neighbors, who are a similar age to my own, mid-20s. We go on walks, have lunch at each other's houses, etc. I only work 3 days a week, so I have a lot of free time. I invited the new neighbor, Molly, to 2 different things: lunch at my house and also a walk and hike me and the others were going on. Both times she just assumed that she could bring her kids and showed up at my house with them. I turned her away from lunch at my house because I didn't want 4 rowdy young kids in my not childproof house. She was upset because she had no one who could ever watch them, and she couldn't come without them. She brought them on a walk with us, but we couldn't go into the forest because of her stroller, so it ruined things for us. The neighborhood has no trees or shade, and the summer heat makes it awful. The forest is much better. Since then, I've been avoiding Molly like the plague. I just don't want to be her friend. She's invited me over, asked to come over and bring her kids. She even asked me to watch her kids the other day so she could have a break. I barely know the woman, and I feel like her behavior is pretty inappropriate, and maybe she's just not picking up on social cues. Today, my other neighbor and I went for a walk in the forest, and she saw us go. She texted me to ask why she wasn't invited, and I said it's because we don't want our plans to be altered by her children, and she expressed that she can't do anything without her children. She went on a rant about how it takes a village, and we don't understand what it's like, and she called us idiots. I agree with her that I don't understand what it's like, because I'd probably never choose to have 4 kids with an absent husband, and I just feel like she's being unreasonable to expect us to have a bad time just so she can have a good time. Her kids were super annoying and hard to deal with. My husband thinks she's an idiot, but my mom thinks I should be more sympathetic. Am I the idiot for excluding my neighbor from activities? Not the idiot. You don't have to be friends with someone you don't want to. You don't even need to have a reason. You're not an idiot for not wanting to be around screaming kids all the time. And from experience, if you invite a mom with multiple kids, chances are they're going to expect some help. Why should you be forced to? She's acting like she's entitled to your time and company, but she isn't. Being a neighbor doesn't equal having to be friends. Everyone's the idiot here. You. You clearly saw that the woman had 4 young kids and the husband is a truck driver. Where else would the kids be when you invite her to go places? Come on now. Molly, she wasn't an idiot until the whole watch my kids thing, and it takes a village. That's foolish when you don't even know the people watching your kids. Back to you. That snippy crap about having kids with an absent father is stupid and unnecessary. Y'all, you and the Mean Girls Club, have every night to not kick it with the lady, but being mad that her kids come along is stupid. If someone invites you to their house or an activity or something, you can't just bring as many other people as you want. OP invited 1 person to lunch. Molly brought 5 people total and expected OP to accommodate her? What if OP didn't have enough food to feed an extra 4 people? And to top it off, Molly called OP names for not inviting her to things. I wouldn't want to be Molly's friend either. I'm 40s female and have 2 children, Dax, male tween, and Mia, female teen. My kids don't get along super well. Dax thinks pranks are really funny. I guess like every boy, and he annoys Mia with them a lot. My husband and I have been working on it, as it's the source of many fights between them. Dax gets a lot of prank ideas from the internet and will often recreate what he sees. Most of them are harmless, something like a fake spider in her food, etc. But I think he went too far this time. Dax thought it would be funny to put plastic wrap over the toilet before my daughter went to the bathroom. He says he got the idea online. I don't know if this is a thing, but it's a terrible prank. So he does this right before Mia goes into the bathroom and pranks her. She comes to me crying. She's embarrassed. I told Mia to shower and not worry about the mess. Here's where I might be the idiot. I go to my son and yell at him for what he did. I tell him that's not an appropriate prank, and he's old enough to know that's not okay. And then I made him clean it up. He started crying, saying it was unfair. I made him clean his sister's mess. It's gross, and he's going to be sick. He says it's from her body, so she should clean it. But it was his entire fault, and literally his mess to deal with. I don't know why I should humiliate my daughter further, or why I should have to clean it up. And the biggest thing, he needs to learn. I told him the mess was his fault, and he should think about the repercussions of his actions next time because this is what his prank caused. And then I stood in the doorway and watched as I made him clean the floor and toilet. I think it was an appropriate punishment, considering it's really just the natural consequence of what he did. And it doubles as a general lesson in how to clean a toilet, which he has to learn at some point anyway. Well, my husband disagrees. This all happened while he was at work, and after we got home, Dax complained to him. He told me I was overly harsh on our son and put him in danger by exposing him to germs. But I gave him the same gloves I use when I have to wash the toilet, and it's not like he was unsupervised. But my husband is mad at me and told me I went too far, and that's bad parenting. Of course my son is mad at me too, but my daughter's on my side. Am I the idiot? Am I a bad mom? Not the idiot, but your husband is, and you can see why Dax thinks it's okay to pull this crap on his sister. What the heck is your husband on about? You put him in danger by exposing him to germs. He cleaned a toilet, for heaven's sake. We all do it. In fact, lots of tweens do it as part of their chores. You should ask your husband if he'd prefer it if you left Dax's messes for him to clean up when he finishes work in the future. Exactly. Jesus. Tell your idiot husband that the next time your son does something like this, you'll leave it for him to clean because you and your daughter are not doing it. Your kid is learning what it means to reap the consequences of his actions. Your husband should back you up. He isn't doing Dax any good. I'm tempted to advocate for his internet access to be restricted. He's shown he isn't using it responsibly.